After a decade of taking photos for work, for fun, of friends, of landscapes, and of myself, I ended up in a position which I never thought was possible. Photography felt boring. So what do you do when you fall out of love with your passion? Give up, or do you try and fix it? Oh, and spoiler alert, I did fix it, and I'll tell you how. So I first picked up a camera when I was 19, and honestly, it completely blew me away. It felt like I was seeing the world in a whole different light, and suddenly I had a way to be creative and to capture great memories. Over years, it became a big part of my job, and at points, I would even call myself a photographer, and people were starting to know me for it. And the best part of all is that I honestly found it really fun. It kind of felt like I was hacking life. I was getting paid to do something which I would have actually just done for free. So what could go wrong? Well, fast forward 10 years. The camera which I was once so obsessed about was now gathering dust, and I didn't shoot any digital photography unless I really had to for work. I was left wondering why it happened and why doesn't it excite me anymore, until one day on YouTube I ended up going down a rabbit hole.
Fujifilm X100V.
X100V.
Fuji X100V.
So I stumbled upon what is probably the most hyped camera of the last few years. And honestly, it does look pretty cool. And it got me thinking, what does that have that mine doesn't? And more importantly, what do I actually want from a camera? Looking back at my favorite photos and the ones that mean the most to me, they're not even great shots. They're just hanging out with friends, traveling, and generally good times captured in a still image. So if that's the priority, what do I need? Something small, easy to travel with, and a good image straight out of the camera. I basically started to understand all the hype around these Fuji cameras, you know, a nice compact vintage looking body and film simulations built in to give your images a little something extra. However, due to all the hype, the price was insanely inflated, and I personally was not prepared to break the bank. I decided that instead I would only spend the amount of money that I could recoup for my old camera, essentially a straight swap. That left me looking at the older model from 2014, the Fujifilm X100T. Maybe this would be the camera that actually gets me out shooting again. So it was time to make a change and say goodbye to my Sony a7 III. So I don't usually get sentimental or emotional about random objects, but I have to say, I'm going to be pretty sad to see this little thing go. It's been with me through most of my filmmaking journey, and it's been absolutely brilliant. It kind of propelled me into the real world of filmmaking, even if it is like a little hybrid camera. It punched well above its weight for many years, but it wasn't getting used anymore. So, you know, instead of letting it gather dust, I thought it'd be better to give it to someone else, and yeah, hopefully they go on to have a really good career, or at least just have fun with it. So there was definitely a part of me that was quite worried when I got this camera. Not only is it older, but you can't take the lens off, and objectively, the image quality is definitely not as good. However, the goal was purely just to get me inspired and to get me out shooting again. And thankfully, it did just that. So pretty much as soon as I got the camera, I began to chuck it in whatever bag I had on me day to day. And with it being so simple to use, the friction of taking a photo seemed to disappear. All of a sudden, I was taking shots of everyday things, keeping an eye out for interesting shapes and scenes, and well, just having fun. I feel like when I stopped focusing on purely the quality of the photo and essentially just going for vibes, everything felt much more relaxed as a result. Of course, I'm still trying to take good photos, but generally, it just felt like the pressure was off. So one of the best things about having a camera that looks like this is that to most people, you look like you just shoot for a hobby, or perhaps you're just a tourist, which is really good because you can just walk around shooting with it. Nobody really asks any questions or gets awkward, and you can definitely get away with shooting in more places. There was one time actually where I got kicked out of an arcade after about 10 seconds of walking in because I was holding my old Sony Handycam, and yet there's people in there recording stuff on their phones. Make it make sense. Switching to this camera has of course been great, but it's not without its downsides. Firstly, if it's dark, you're gonna have to use the flash. Without it, the autofocus is gonna have a meltdown and the images are gonna be really noisy. Also, this isn't a hybrid camera, so the video is not going to hold up these days. So yeah, probably forget about that. And if you're looking for something to use on client work, again, it's not that kind of camera. This is essentially a lightweight, super simple camera that can provide some good vibes. And honestly, I'm cool with that. Are you paying extra for the look, the brand, and the overall hype? Yeah, kind of, but at the same time, if you look after it, it will hold its value. So if you use it for like 6 months and it's not for you, I'd be quite shocked if when you sold it again, you didn't get most of your money back. Also, shout out to my old camera as well, because I bought that with a lens back in 2018 for £1,500, and I used that so much. It was my absolute workhorse of a camera, and yeah, to sell it for basically half the price 6 years later, absolutely insane. And doing the math, that camera actually ended up costing me £133 per year to use. Yeah, wild. Let's go back to the whole reason why you probably picked up a camera in the first place, and that's to have fun. The chances are that you actually got into photography because you found it exciting, challenging, and overall a creative outlet. For me, somewhere along the journey, it stopped feeling that way, and I wasn't prepared to just let an art form that I love feel boring. I hope even if it's not photography, if you do have a hobby or a passion that you have fallen out of love with, you can explore the reasons why and get that spark back again. So do you need a camera like this? I would say no. I don't think anyone actually needs this type of camera, but I will admit it is something that is quite nice to have, but it is a bit of a treat. If you're looking to get into proper photography, as I would call it, and maybe do it as a career, this camera is not for you. But if you do want something that's fun, easy to use, great to chuck in a bag and take on a holiday and generally just kind of document your life, then yeah, you could do a lot worse than this camera. Anyway, I just kind of wanted to make this video for anyone who has had similar feelings with photography being such a big part of my life. I didn't just want it to become this boring thing that, yeah, I had no love for, so I had to do something about it, and I'm sure there's people out there who have felt the same thing, so yeah. Hopefully that is inspiring in some way. Maybe this could be the answer to your problems, but at the same time, it might not be. It's just kind of what's worked for me. Anyway, thank you for watching the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, then I would greatly appreciate it if you considered subscribing to the channel. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Cheers.